Sunwater Marine is a company that I dreamed up during the pandemic. I was sheltering in place in my home in Colorado, and there wasn't really a whole lot of business getting done, and so I had nothing to do but like shop for boats. I would get on Yacht World every morning at 8 o'clock and see what was available that day. I had been looking for a boat for some time, but when this boat came up, I saw the scenery, and including the blue boat that is parked in front of us now, and I knew exactly where it was and what boat it was. Made a call, found out that the boat was a full-time charter, and bought the boat 3 hours later, sight unseen. The reason that I wanted to have a boat like this was so that I could cover it with solar panels. That also, as I started to research it, I got interested in other things that you could do to make sailing more energy efficient. Things like getting energy efficient water makers, energy efficient autopilots that actually have artificial intelligence and learn how to sail the boat most optimally. Induction cooktop, which is popular now on land. There are induction cooktops now, electric induction cooktops for boats. So as I was researching these various things to do, I started to learn that the new thing is like replacing the lead acid or AGM batteries with lithium batteries. The lithium batteries give you about twice as much usage out of the life curve of the battery than a lead acid battery, and weigh about half as much. And as I started to learn more about the batteries, I started to realize that people were actually buying electric motors to replace their diesel engines. And I was like, well, this is like just the coolest thing. So that's what I started researching. I started researching several companies that had electric motors for their boats that you could buy. I came across a company called Oceanvolt from Finland, and what I really liked about Oceanvolt was how integrated the engineering was. They had a product called the servo prop that is a fully articulating propeller that doesn't have a belt drive. It's a direct drive, and it's integrated with a computer so that the computer is always picking the optimum pitch of the propeller, much like you would in an airplane. And I thought that, well, this is really nicely engineered. I'm interested in that, so I called them up. And I asked how I could get that for my boat, and they said, well, we'd love to sell it to you, but we don't have anybody to install these in San Diego. And I was like, oh, really? I could do that. The biggest drawback of using solar on a sailboat is that when solar panels that are silicon, when they're partially shaded, most of their output of the panel goes away. So there's hardly any time on a sailboat when a solar panel wouldn't be partially shaded. Additionally, there's hardly any time on a sailboat when you wouldn't have to walk on the panel because you've got limited space. So the other drawback of silicon cells, which is normally what you see out there, are that if you step on them, they crack and they degrade the performance of the panels. So I found an alternative called a SIGS panel that's made of gallium selenide instead of silicon, and that's how I came across the Sunflare panels that I've got on the boat. The Sunflare panels are completely flexible. They mold and shape themselves to a curved surface. You can walk on them. They have good grip even when they're wet, and when they're partially shaded, because each individual cell has its own bypass diode, the cells that aren't shaded are still outputting solar energy. So I thought that was an interesting product. So I That's what I put on top of the boat with Sunflare. There's not a lot of wind usually in San Diego. It's what people call light air most of the time. What's really nice about electric propulsion with solar is that at very low speeds, you actually are generating enough solar energy to run the electric motors without using any fossil fuels. And so you can run the motors at a very low RPM, about 500 to 700 RPM off of the solar. And it starts to move the boat along, and as the boat moves along, it puts wind in the sail, and you start to make your own wind, and you can start sailing in very light wind. In addition to that, the Oceanvolt servoprops reverse. When you're going over 5 knots sailing, they reverse and face forward, and they act as generators and recharge the lithium batteries. So there's a regen mode, which actually works really well. We sailed the boat out to Coronado Norte and back one day, about 6 hours, and about 3 hours on the way out we recharged the batteries about 15%. With boating, I think that there's going to be a trend to electric propulsion. There's going to be a trend to solar. You don't really see much of it now, but you didn't really see much in the way of electric cars just 5 years ago. And now electric cars are becoming the thing that is going to happen. And I think as more people experience electric cars, they're going to want to be able to experience that